We are in London, but what I want to talk to Stephen about is what he saw in Berlin. He was the only Australian at an energy conference in Berlin where he stopped over on his way to London. First thing I need to ask you, Stephen, why were you the only Australian at this international energy conference? Why wasn't Chris Bowen there?
Well, this was not so much a conference, Fred, it was a roundtable discussion.
Okay.
And it was hosted by
But Chris wasn't invited.
Chris wasn't invited. I got an invitation from an old gas consultant.
Right, okay.
And I actually got an invitation from an American geopolitics guy who lives in Berlin.
Right.
And a friend of mine who's a gas consultant,
Okay.
Norwegian living in London, said that I should come along.
So it was a round table. How many people there?
Well, so the format was, there was probably 20, 30 people in the room.
Yeah.
The format was a panel.
Yeah.
So there were 3 people in the room on the panel, and then there was one by video link from Kiev.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what did you learn from this, and how relevant? I mean, we spoke about it earlier. What you seem to have gleaned from this was quite important for Australia.
Yeah. Well, first, the question, the title of the roundtable, framed as a question, was, "Is Europe winning the energy war?" So that's a very provocative.
So give us the short answer first.
Yes. Well, the short answer was the first round, yes, but watch out for the next round that's coming. So why was there this view that Europe's winning the energy war, which I think might surprise some people in Australia? And the reason is that Russia very clearly was trying to freeze Europe to death last winter and didn't manage to do that.
We talked about this earlier, and you have an interesting conclusion about this. You think Russia blew up the Nord Stream pipeline?
Well, that's a contentious issue. There's been an official, Swedish government submarine investigation, shall we say, and they've taken parts of it back to the lab to analyse and all the rest. But there has been no official announcement about who blew up the pipeline. There is a theory that Russia did that deliberately. There's another theory.
So that would freeze Europe last winter?
Yeah, well, so then there's a sort of what's called, in Russian propaganda, there's something called plausible deniability. Maybe it's not a unique concept to the Russians, but so that they could essentially cut off the supply and, was someone blowing up the pipeline, it wasn't us.
So they didn't achieve that. Europe has survived so far. What is the prognosis for Europe now?
Well, I think there's a view that the energy element of the war will intensify.
This is the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember that Germany has taken, a hit. They've closed plants down, industries down. So there's economic suffering to, make sure that they could get through with other supplies, and they've managed to keep, to stay warm last winter.
So, but Germany was shutting down windmills to fire up coal power plants, weren't they?
There was one place in Germany that I'm aware of where to access a coal seam, a lignite seam indeed, brown coal, underneath the ground, they were actually dismantling a wind turbine or several wind turbines to get to the coal seam, which was sort of,
Yeah, that's amusing. Very symbolic. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So how is Germany coping now? You've been there. Are they, the news we get in Australia is that Germany is a bad example to be following. They went all in initially they went all in for nuclear. They shut that down. They've gone for renewables. Are they suffering?
Well, they've backed themselves into a corner with their energy policies, and they've been pursuing these 3 big policy settings for, let's say, best part of 20 years, which is naive over-reliance on wind and solar, number 1. Number 2, not properly respecting or understanding the importance of gas security of supply. And number 3, rejecting nuclear energy. And the reason that this is, surprisingly perhaps, the striking thing is that in Australia, we are copying, if you will, those same 3 big energy policy blunders.
Okay, let's look at that then. So we are behind them. They've already gone down that road. How badly have they suffered as a result? And are we heading in the same direction?
Yeah, we are heading in the same direction. There's a tendency to think that we've got natural advantages Germany doesn't have. We are an energy exporter, coal, LNG, uranium. Germany is an energy importer. But they've got some advantages we don't have. Like, a European country that's part of a large interconnected European system. We in Australia are an island. So the way that the consequences play out for Australia will be different in the details than the way they play out for Germany, but the basic mistakes that are being made are the same.
So are we heading for a fall in Australia?
Oh, well, I think we're heading for a crisis. The thing is that, we're talking about systems that have been, historically were very robustly engineered. So there's a lot of resilience and robustness engineered into the power system. And you can start removing that and it seems like nothing's happening. It's like, I could drive around without my seatbelt. Oh, I could, drive above the speed limit. Oh, I could, drink and drive, and I survived, everything was fine, I haven't had an accident yet. But what you're doing is you're increasing the risk of disaster.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're doing in the power system.